Joining me now is Patrice Onwuka, the Independent Women's Forum Director of the Center for Economic Opportunity. Patrice, great to see you. So,
good to see you, David.
What would happen? I mean, I know what Chad said is absolutely true. There hasn't been in the railroad business a strike that goes against Congress in such a fashion. But, you know, these union leaders are angry. And what happens if they do go on strike?
Well, I think we'd see massive economic implications across the entire economy. I mean, shutting down railroads and railway service, would hamper our ability to get a lot of goods and services, across this country. So, I think the economic impacts would be massive, but politically it would not be very good for President Biden, especially if he's thinking about 2024. I mean, I just can't help but think how convenient this is that this is happening, about a month after the midterm elections have already passed.
Yeah, it's so obvious what's going on. I mean, what was going on before when he said it's all wrapped up as a Christmas present for the American people, you know, we don't have to worry. I mean, it wasn't all wrapped up. And it kind of says a lot about the way things are done. You get promises, 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 and very little delivery, or sometimes just the opposite, like when he said inflation was going to be temporary.
Sadly, but true, and we're seeing, a year and a half into it, that inflation is far from temporary. Even if it's moderating quite a little bit, it's not enough for the Federal Reserve, for example, to stop interest rate hikes right now, nor is it enough to really, to ease the pain that I think a lot of American families are feeling. So it's one of those things. And President Biden, David, he said he's going to be the most union-friendly president in history. And in one hand, he's working on that through his Department of Labor, passing everything from joint employer regulations to independent contractor crackdowns. And then on the other hand, he's trying to force the union's hand. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah. He also said he was never going to have a tax increase for people under $400,000. What is the inflation tax if not a tax? I mean, it's in many ways, it's the cruelest tax of all because you can't avoid it.
Well, if you're at the bottom of rung of the economic ladder, you are paying proportionately more of your budget on groceries and gas, so you feel it. But we're also seeing in surveys, middle-class families, even upper-middle-class families are starting to say, at least a third in one survey I've seen, that that inflation is creating a hardship for them. So this is something, that I think we're seeing bear out in lots of different ways. We're seeing the savings rate start to slip to record lows at this point. We're seeing, the amount of personal debt start to climb. I think it's interesting. You have J.P. Morgan Chase that have said that by next year, all of the mountain of COVID savings that families were sitting on top of and swimming in like Scrooge McDuck, it's probably going to be eaten into by the middle of next year. So I look at the economy and say, boy, this is a scary movie. Something is going to happen. The signs are ominous around us and the alarm bells are ringing. And I think the American people just need to buckle up and prepare for what's coming.
You focused on something that I was interested in this morning because we had some pretty good spending numbers coming out that showing that consumers are still spending. But it's not because of that buffer of savings, to use a phrase from Janet Yellen. It's because they're reaching for their credit card now instead of into their pocket because they don't have anything in their pocket.
Absolutely. They've been spending down on all of those COVID savings, and then now they're turning to credit. They're also turning to kind of bill me, buy now, pay later forms of payment where, you spread out the payments over 4 months or multiple months. So people are continuing to spend, and maybe perhaps they're feeling like prices are going to continue to be high, and I don't know what my finances look like in the future, so let me buy them now. But I do believe that we're going to start to see spending moderate, especially if layoffs move from the tech industry and the housing industry into other industries. And maybe tomorrow's jobs report will give us some really good clues on that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Patrice, great stuff. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you,
Appreciate
David.
you handling the breaking news as well.